off probably tomorrow, so
Okay.
I
So
get the rest of the stitches out. Yeah, I had cancer
Sorry.
on the nose, and they took a bunch out and it's been kind of an ugly road for the past month and a half. But
Well, glad you're on
good
the
to be on
mend.
the back end. Yeah.
Yes. Glad you're on the mend.
Thank you. Thank you. So oxygen's number one, and then at the end of the day, you also have, okay, I've got oxygen and it's moving around, but is it getting to everywhere where it needs to be? If your hands and feet are cold, your autonomic nervous system is screwed up. And your hands and feet are extremities. Well, guess what else is an extremity? Your brain. You got it. So now we've got literally a problem at the level of what we call the arterioles, the bore size of the arterioles, and allowing blood flow. Because if you had better blood flow, it'd be warm. Make sense? And so we're looking at everything in that process. So that's oxygen. Then we got carbs and sugars. Number two, they gotta have it. It can only operate on carbs and sugars, the brain and the red blood cells.
Okay, now which kind of carbs are you talking about? Fruit, vegetable carbs? I'd eat lots of fruits and vegetables.
Beautiful.
Okay.
That's great.
Not all I eat.
That's great. But then we can have problems with hypoglycemia, diabetes, and yeah. And so now let's start. You get up to bat, you've already got 2.5 strikes, right? And so we've got that issue. Then we go on to the third thing that's got to happen for the cell to survive is activation. If you don't use it, you lose it. You know that.
Yep.
And when you don't use it, it goes through a process when you fire. I've already said it before, immediate early gene response, which is when you fire the nerve, it has to do cellular housekeeping is the way I describe it. Stuff goes bad, it has to be replaced. Stuff gets to be junk, it has to be jettisoned. All of that process happens because I fired it. And if I don't fire it, I'm going to go in the opposite. You've heard neuroplasticity. That's the positive on the number line. The negative on the number line, which you've probably never heard, is transneural degeneration.
Yes, okay.
That's where it's progressively getting worse, okay? And I deal a lot with that. But we've got to have activation. But in order to activate, you have to have protein. Because all that stuff is made of protein. And so that's why if you don't have protein, you are automatically in a significant fatigue factor. And that's why, I've had kids come in here, autistic kids, they can't speak and that. And if you put inflamed brain with protein, they are melting down. You could be 35. You put those two together, you're melting down. That's just the way it happens. I had one kid, he was freaking out. His parents took him to, there's a Cowabunga Bay, it's a big,
water park, isn't it?
Water park, exactly. Kind of like the ocean there. They got lots of sand and he was there all day, and he didn't eat most of the day, and he was severely dehydrated, and they brought him in and they were astonished that he was melting down. I said, you made him melt down. He's boiling his brain, and he's got no protein and I gave him protein, and immediately he softened. It didn't all go away. I said, well, you've got to get krill is my favorite for inflammation within the brain. So you've got to get that krill in so that you can knock that inflammation down. Well, as soon as we started doing that, he knocked it down even further, and then he woke up a lot better.
Wow.
And that, so.
We've got to get that.
No, it was delivered to the hotel.
Oh, it was one
Good.
that delivers.
Very good. Yeah, and you have an autoimmune. If you have pernicious anemia, you have an autoimmune.
Okay.
I assume that because you've been dealing with this long, and it's gotten this far, you got an autoimmune.
Okay.
I don't care what the doctors say. I don't care what the lab work says.
Yeah.
If you get lab work that says you have an autoimmune, you've had it for 10 years. Because the lab work is very insensitive. It's not, I'm not bagging on them. I'm just saying it's insensitive, right? And so, yeah. And so that's one of the biggest layers. Imagine that it's like in those layers, it's a comforter, a thick comforter. And when we peel that back, it's a completely different world. And it's a completely different patient as soon as we can do that.
Audrey, a few years ago, 3 years ago, we switched to a Whole30 diet. Have you heard of the Whole30?
Mm-hmm.
It's no processed foods, no sugar, nothing bad. It's
Okay.
all wonderful.
Good.
And it even teaches you about GMOs, what truth, you know, the government's telling you that this and this and this is not genetically modified, but sorry, it is.
It is.
And so, you know, it teaches you the truth about the food. And then, so I went Whole30. I was in this state before, and I was having seizures, like full body knockdown, drag out, not stopping. And I went on Whole30. Basically, I fasted for about a week, got all the crap out of my body. And even though I think I'm eating good, I go to a restaurant, I think I'm eating good, I pick the healthiest thing on the menu. And after learning about Whole30, I'm like, there's nothing healthy in anything that I've been eating. And now that I go to a restaurant, there are no restaurants you can go to. And I even did a 15, I'm a producer, I did a 15 episode thing on food in our community, and I had to scrap it because if I posted something like that about my community, well, I may as well just move out, you know, because there's nothing good. And affiliated foods, I mean, it was just a whole, like, wow, unpacking it, and then
Right.
just gets more insidious, and it just gets to the point of everything in our lives is like that to this point nowadays, and everybody's not aware of it. I'm the canary in the coal mine yelling to everybody, hey, yo, this was going to happen to you.
We're going to die soon.
Yeah, and there's literally the spray plane flying over our house. I'm outside on the phone with your wife, like, do you have environmental hazards? Well, yeah, I think that plane might be. And so then I started being aware of, this is what killed me in the first place. You know, like, I literally died when I was 9, and they brought me back from pericot poisoning. And so I'm thinking, we live surrounded, you know, in this little tiny town, surrounded on all sides by fields, non-stop all the way out. And even when you drive 2 hours to the town to go buy groceries, there's a plane on every field. And I'm just thinking, I can't get away from it no matter what I do.
But that was switching to the Whole30 diet was a game changer at the time because her health changed immensely.
Yeah, I became asymptomatic, and I went back to New York. I went back to my career. I auditioned, got an agent again, started doing commercials again, became symptomatic again. And then if I go on set and I have a seizure, I am liable to pay for that entire set. Well, I get $3,000 a day for a commercial, and so does every other actor on that set. And then those camera guys are making more than me, you know. And then so one commercial day can cost $150,000. So if I accept that job, I know that if I go kind of with funky on the day, I am liable for that contract. And so it takes away your work, you know. It's just like, oh my God, it just, and then
the diet seemed to work pretty well for a good amount of time. But I would say in the last year I've noticed a decline. Now Audrey found out she's allergic to soy.
Yeah, that was big, helpful.
Okay.
And finding that out was huge because we kept eating certain things and she would get sick, and it was like, I don't get it. This is Whole30. It should be good. Right. And then we finally figured out the soy thing. But I would say a year ago at this time, I started to see a decline. And then throughout the fall, just gradual decline. And then in the spring,
since February, it's been pretty hard.
And
then April 20th, I had my dystonic storm, and that's it. I've been out of asymptomatic. I say I'm asymptomatic. It's because I'm not having the whole full body thing, but I'm still having legs and arms and, you know, stabs and jabs and inside, like my sphincters, my throat. I mean, to me, that's asymptomatic because if I can get up and still fake it, I'm good.
I'm still conscious and I can still pretend.
Yeah, I can still pretend I'm good, but it's when I can't pretend and can't be in public, and I mean, I can't fake that. I can't make that stop, you know, so.
Like last night, what's been happening lately is Audrey's been having the pains and stuff, and I've been trying to remind her how on the phone you were able to talk her down, and she just doesn't want to hear it. You know, I don't want to hear it, and I don't care, and you know, I tried to make like the falling in the tub was we have to move out of here. And I mentioned, well, maybe we should get a mat for the floors so that you won't, I think kind of common sense, kind of figure out a way to solution without having to move out. And right away, it's no.
Well, it's because you're going to have to buy a heater, you're going to have to buy a mat, you're going to have to buy a shower curtain door, you're going to have to buy clips to figure out how you're going to get a rig that onto there. Well, is it worth it? It's just more drama because it's just nonstop.
So it's just, I think Audrey is to the point now of just exhaustion. And I keep telling her, like this morning, I kept telling her that, remember last week over the phone, in 20 minutes you would reduce pain and things like that. You're going to learn this week how to start handling these things. And it wasn't hitting home today. And so I was very glad we got here. Yeah.
Did we talk about drive your Ferrari?
Kinda. Maybe. I think we did.
When I was a kid, I loved baseball, and I was in Little League, and I had a little friend. His dad was the coach, and they actually helped me, because I was so uncoordinated. I was horrible. But he was a professional motorcycle rider at our age, and he had lots of money. His parents were rich, but he was rich. And so he would come to school in what's called a Pantera. I don't know if you've ever heard of those.
Car. Super cool.
Super cool, yeah. And I came to school in a Duster 3-speed on the tree, and it was smashed in on the right. And when I had to take my dad's car and take a beam and back it into the beam so we could smash it out so somebody could sit in the seat next to me. There, it was so bad. It was perfect. I don't care, man. It's a go-kart. It gets me from here to there. That's all I need, man.
You need a beater. That's
exactly. A beater to get me to my life.
Yeah.
And I remember driving up one day, and he had everything open, and all the kids were all around, and he goes, Roger, that thing is a piece of crap. And I said, absolutely. It's a perfect piece of crap. And he goes, You can't even imagine how many girls want to get in this car with me. And I said, I'm pretty sure. I said, here's the deal though. When they get in my car, it's because of me. It ain't the car. And they get in your car, it may be the car, it may be you, but I'm telling you, Dre, it's the car.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that day I came up with a phrase. That day, I'd rather be a Ferrari than drive one. And so from there, then that has kind of dictated how I do my life and how I think and all of that. And I still drive a beater, a hand-me-down. It's perfect, man.
Yes.
It gets me exactly where I want to go. But that's what I want for you and for every one of my patients. You're having a bad day. It's driving you. So you're in the passenger seat. I'm going to be working to get you from the passenger seat into the driver's seat. So even if it's bad, you're in control. Say, okay, I know when I have these symptoms, if I do this, I can soften it. And you do it, and it's a little softer. And then you start to feel, oh, okay, all right, it's not driving me. That makes sense?
Yeah.
So that's the concept. And so right off the bat, I'm going to be giving you things. Some of the things I'm going to give you are strategies. And that is, we're going to knock down symptoms, and they're not so much about changing your brain, not as much about. Then there's therapies that I'm going to give you here and at home. Those are about changing the parts of the brain that need to change, that need to grow. And that's what we're going to be on an adventure trying to figure out. What is it you need, and what is the best thing you need? People say to me all the time, what do you do for a migraine headache? And I always say, put the patient in front of me. I don't know. I know exactly where that headache's coming from. It's coming from the midbrain, just underneath the brain. It's actually the floor of the brain. the mesencephalon, and it is turning up the sympathetic nervous system, opening up the blood vessels in your meninges, and that's why it's ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. That's why everything is sensitive, because that midbrain is sensitive on that side. Say, but I don't know why it's doing that. I'm the why guy. Everybody else wants to treat the what. I want to treat the why. And if I treat the why and we change it, then the what goes away. That's
Boy, I make doctors mad when I say that, don't I? I make doctors mad.
Oh, I
had a doctor, my last doctor said, when you get out of denial that you have this, you'll take the meds and get the injections. And I was like, wow, okay, sign me up.
That was the doctor up in Denver.
That's the doctor that saved me the last time, because I didn't know I had dystonia. Everybody just said I had non-epileptic seizure disorder, and it's all in my head, and I'm just making this all up because I need attention. And so I checked myself into a Laurel Ridge hospital because I'm bipolar manic depressive, you know. And the therapist is going, well, it's all about your history of your life, your childhood, and so you know you have to dig out all that crap. So you dig out all that crap, and then he comes to family day, and she admits to him, she goes, oh, well, you corroborated everything that she said. I thought she was lying about all of her family history. And I'm like, well, you just made me 500 times worse.
Yeah.
Because that's the whole, that wasn't the abuse that was the problem. It was the no one believing
Nobody believes
the problem.
Me.
And that's what I'm having with this right now.
Yeah.
Like, my brothers think I just want to be skinny and famous. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah. To go through this for that?
Yeah, because I am a performer. I'm a dancer. I'm on stage. Yes, I have an agent. Yes, I do that. But I'm not trying to be famous. I'm doing the work. I mean, if I wanted to be famous, I would have done that a long time ago. And that's a choice you don't want to make. I know about that road. And so, you know, I'm just in this hell. I'm just in this hell.
Audrey, we believe you.
Absolutely.
And as the doctor said, we're going to get strategies to handle things, and then there's going to be the psychological part.
Okay.
And, you know, I love you brothers, but,
I know.
you know, they're their own people. And
But if that's what my own family thinks, then what is the whole world think?
Audrey, your family's just a whole different... I mean, it's
all relative.
It's a psychological experiment. Their family is... Oof.
What is it my sister says, my youngest sister? She says, if it's not one thing, it's your mother.
Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah. So, we'll first work on you.
Okay.
And then when we're ready, we'll deal with the family.
Okay.
And if we don't deal with the family, we'll have our own lives, but we're going to get you better first.
Okay.
One of the phrases I came up with a long time ago, and you'll hear it over and over again, the closer you get to the truth, the simpler the solution.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be working to find everything that we can about what really is going on and that. And then we're going to be coming up with therapies that make sense, but also therapies that we can layer. I call it layering, because let's say we've got 5 different areas that really significantly need help, and so we're working with those 5, but at some point we're going to be lacing those together as one therapy if we can, but then changing how we're doing that so that we're working not just with the neuronal pools that we need to work with, but we're also working with the connectivity and then the timing. Because the brilliance of the brain isn't the pieces parts, it's the harmonies. How is it functioning from a harmonic point of view? That makes sense?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay. When I looked at the video you sent me, it looked less like dystonia and more like seizure. And let me explain seizure for a minute here, so that it's more clear. And most doctors don't really have a handle, on that. There are 2 problems that the brain can experience. One is it's operating too low, and that's one of 2 things. You either have, I didn't develop that circuitry, which is developmental disorders, whether it's on the dyslexia's left side.
I have dyslexia, and I'm ambidextrous.
Okay, all right.
And I'm proven ambidextrous, like I've had it tested.
Okay, and so on the right side is all the behavioral learning disorders, which you don't appear to be dealing with, and that. So that narrows some things down for us. But in that being low, it can also be a degenerative process, meaning you lose about 10% per decade anyway. But then there are other things that we tend to throw in, Alzheimer's, dyslexia, or frontotemporal demise, Parkinson's. But these are on the cellular level problems rather than just, we call it neurodegenerative diseases versus neurodegenerative disorders. The thing about neurodegenerative diseases is if you have that, you've also got neurodegenerative disorder, because if you don't use it, you lose it. And so you're doing both at the same time. And so in that kind of function, and it's interesting too, if you had a lack of development in an area, a diminished development, it's going to be the first thing to decrease. Okay. On the other end of the spectrum, we have what's called epileptiform disorders. And that doesn't mean epilepsy. Epilepsy is one of the categories. Mm-hmm. Epilepsy is one of the categories, and usually that comes from near birth or birth. They'll come out of the birth canal having a seizure and that. And so then you have seizure disorders is the second category. That is, it just showed up. What's common about those two? They're both healthy cells that are running too hot. And so it's more of a genetic structure, and they go rogue. And boom, they go rogue. And then the third one is called pseudoepileptiform disorders, which is what I deal with much more. Yes?
Harry and Lana in Alta is ready when you are.
Very good, thank you. Pseudoepileptiform disorders are because the cells are sick. TND, transneurodegeneration. And you would think that if they're getting sick, they'll be less able to fire. No, actually, they ramp up. They change their permeability. They change their receptiveness of neurotransmitters. Usually there's only, one or two positive ones and one or two negative ones that they'll accept. Now they'll accept anything. They'll accept toxins, cellular junk, anything. Why? Because if I don't fire, I'm going to die. And so I got to go through immediate early gene response. The difference, like I say, between the two is healthy cells, sick cells. I got to keep this one alive and make it so that it's plastic. I got to tell these to shut up. And that in a nutshell, that's really quick. That tells us what our strategy is going to be. That's why knowing what it is incredibly important. I had this sweet little lady I take care of, and there are times where she can't speak, and has a pretty high level executive job, and all of a sudden, boom, she can't speak. And everybody's been treating the left side of her brain. Well, the left side of her brain is where all the speech centers are, right? We do the emotions of speech on the right. Well, so I checked it, and oh my gosh, it made it worse. And I said, you have a seizure disorder to Brokaw's, which is your speech area. And so I started working with the other side, and as I'm working with the other side, when you turn one on, you turn the other off. Mm-hmm. And so we're working to squash that side, but I'm working on the long run to build that area that squashes it to the point where it constantly keeps it at bay. That's the strategy.
And eventually it will reset itself, and it'll do it itself without you having to do all of the games with it.
When I build this up high enough, it, by virtue of firing each day, it's kind of like learning to read, right? When you read, you're supporting plastically. When you learn to ride a bike, when you ride your bike, it's supporting all of the neurological things that you had to develop in order to make that work. The balance, the pressure on the handlebars, pressure on the pedals. It does. By riding the bike, you're maintaining all of it.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yes.
And so that's the strategy, but knowing which one, because like I say, I did the hot side and found out, ooh, this is not sick cells. Those are healthy cells gone rogue. And so I went over and worked with these sick cells. There are times where it might be Brokaw's from a stroke in there, and now the cells are sick, so I'm working with those directly rather than indirectly. Can you see
So we're
that?
going to find out if I have healthy cells or dead cells.
Yes.
Okay.
Or dying
Yeah,
cells.
dying cells.
I think I think you're right on it, but I think with Audrey, it's also a combination of her neck instability.
Oh yeah.
I think the combination of the two driving her absolutely insane.
Yeah, yeah. See, the structure of your body, and that's my first specialty. I've been doing that for the last 25 years, almost 30 years now. It drives your brain. Mm-hmm. The primary driver of the central integrative state of your brain is the muscles of your spine and the sensors in your spine. They sense movement, they sense position and all that. There are 400 million nerve fibers coming from your spine telling you where you are in space. Well, when it does that, that's why when you get up in the morning, you can't think, smell, taste, and then you stand up and all of a sudden, whoa, yeah, I'm awake now. Yeah, that's why.
Are there literally 400 million?
400 million from here to here. That's not everything else. Okay? I got to go take care of a few patients, and I'll be back.
Okay.
Think of any questions.